Bassam Youssef is an Egyptian doctor who became a comedian. He has also now become a historian. As a pro-Palestinian activist, he obviously thinks that the land belongs in its entirety to the Palestinians. In an interview with Piers Morgan, a British journalist, this is what Bassam Youssef said.
These are Palestinians, these are their lands. And then suddenly take them. Why? So they've been basically kicked around from their homes. The whole idea, why does Jordan take them? Why does Egypt take them? The same question. Europe has 44 countries. Why don't they take Israel? America has 50 states. Why don't they give them Florida? I mean, we seem to complain about Florida the whole time. Why don't they just give Israel?
Why not send Israelis to Florida? That's Bassam's question. Now, this question exposes an underlying and often unspoken assumption that the Israelis have no historical right or claims to the land. This is in fact the popular narrative, and Israelis are the occupiers and the oppressors. That they displaced and dispossessed the innocent, poor native Palestinian population. Let's take a closer look at this perspective. First of all, is that true? Don't the Israelis have any ancient connection to the land of Israel? Was it all just a made-up Zionist hoax to carve out a land for the stateless group of Jews? What if the reality is a bit more complex than that of Bassam Youssef's oversimplified view of history? What if Israel existed as a kingdom, a nation in the same land years before any Arabs set their foot on it? Is there any verifiable evidence for the existence of the state of Israel apart from the Bible? So in this episode, I would like to point out, purely on the basis of archaeological references, for the existence of the state of Israel in the very lands where the current state of Israel is now located. Welcome to Discern Scripture YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe and support our work. Check out our other videos and recent series. Now let's get on with the video. In the Bible, the name Israel has been used in various ways. The first reference to Israel in the Bible comes in Genesis chapter 32, verse 28. God renamed Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, as Israel. This is what God said. Your name will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. Later on, the descendants of Jacob, his 12 sons and their families, were collectively called as Israelites, the children of Israel, or the people of Israel. The land where they settled was called as the land of Israel. This name, Israel, went through another permutation in 10th century BC. After the death of King Solomon, his kingdom was divided into two. The northern kingdom, comprising of 10 tribes, was called Israel, and the southern kingdom, comprising of 2 tribes, was called Judah. In the prophetic literature, the term Israel is flexibly used both to refer to the northern kingdom of Israel or to all the people of Israel, including both north and the south. The modern state of Israel is called Eretz Israel in Hebrew language. It means land of Israel. That name itself is directly taken from the Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 13, verse 19, not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, Eretz Israel. The Christian New Testament also refers to the land of Israel in Matthew chapter 2, verse 21. While explaining the return of Joseph with his family back from Egypt to the land of Israel. So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. So we see both in the Old Testament and New Testament, we see references to the land of Israel. But as I already said, the focus of this episode is going to be mainly on the archaeological references. So now let's turn our attention to the archaeological references from outside the Bible. I would like to cover 4 important, crucial archaeological findings. So 3 archaeological artifacts that mention the ancient kingdom of Israel are stele, and one is a monolith. A stele refers to a taller stone or a wooden slab erected in the ancient world as a monument. The surface of the stele often has the text, some decorative artwork, or both. These may be inscribed or carved as a relief or even painted. So ancient rulers recorded their achievements on the steles to be remembered by their subjects and preserve them for the future generations. The 4th archaeological finding comes from an ancient monolith. A monolith is a huge single piece of rock that contains ancient inscriptions. Now, let's go over them one by one. The first archaeological finding comes from ancient Egypt, Merneptah Stele, 13th century BC. Now, where was this Merneptah Stele found? It was found in the Egyptian city of Thebes. This stele was discovered in 1896. It lists the military victory of the Egyptian pharaoh Merneptah. So Pharaoh Merneptah reigned in Egypt between 1213 to 1203 BC. So this stele is also known as the Victory Stele of Merneptah. It is preserved in the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities in Cairo today. So what is written actually on the stele? So this stele is made up of a black granite stone. It primarily commemorates a victory in a military campaign by Pharaoh Merneptah. Its final two lines are quite important. They refer to a military campaign in the land of Canaan. As you already know, Canaan was the former name or the ancient name of the land of Israel. In these last two lines, Merneptah states that he defeated Ashkelon, Gezer, Enoam, and Israel, among others. So here is the text, and let me read it for you. Canaan has been plundered into every sort of woe. Ashkelon has been overcome. Gezer has been captured. Enoam is made non-existent. Israel is laid waste, and its seed is not. What is the significance of Merneptah Stele? So this is the first mention of the name Israel outside the Bible in an archaeological finding. So this is the oldest extra-biblical reference to Israel. Israel is mentioned as one of the kingdoms that Pharaoh Merneptah defeated. What do we get from this? There was a kingdom of Israel in the 13th century BC in the land of Canaan. That's close to 1,800 years before the arrival of any Arabs or Muslims in the land of Israel. Now, let's move on to the next archaeological reference. Tel-Dan Stele, 9th to 8th century BC. So where was this Tel-Dan Stele found? The Tel-Dan Stele was discovered in 1993 in an archaeological site of Tel-Dan in the northern Israel. It's located at the base of Mount Hermon. The stele is a fragmentary piece containing a Canaanite inscription. The stele contains several lines in Aramaic, a language that is very closely related to biblical Hebrew. The stele is dated to the 9th century. What is written on the stele? The author of the inscription mentions a conflict with kings of Israel and the house of David. The names of enemy kings are only partially legible. So scholars reconstructed them as Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, son of Joram, of the house of David. The author of the inscription tells how Israel had invaded his country in his father's day and how the god Hadad then made him king and marched with him against Israel. The author then reports that he defeated several kings. Here is the original text. There are several gaps in this inscription as it is a fragment. Particularly, I would like to draw your attention to the lines 8 and 9. King of Israel, and I killed Ahaziah, son of Joram, king of the house of David. And so it continues. So what is the significance of Tel-Dan inscription? It is notable for two reasons. One, for its reference to Israel, and another for its reference to the house of David. Ancient inscriptions refer to the dynasties in this manner, house of so-and-so. Most Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian documents would refer to the house of Omri while referring to the Omri dynasty that ruled the northern kingdom of Israel from Samaria. Here we have a similar case, house of David. This is used to refer to the Davidic dynasty of rulers that ruled from the ancient city of Jerusalem. Tel-Dan inscription testifies to the fact that the Israel and the house of David were not just biblical myths, rather historical kingdoms, and they existed in the 9th century BC in the same geographic location where the modern state of Israel is now located. This also corroborates with a biblical view. After King Solomon, the United Kingdom divided into northern and southern kingdoms, called Israel and Judah, respectively. The capital of Davidic rulers was Jerusalem, and the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel was Samaria, which is currently located in the West Bank. As I mentioned earlier, the only reference to the house of David comes from this stele. Remember, this stele is dated to 9th century BC. That is roughly 1400 to 1500 years before Islam or Arabs set foot on the land of Israel. Even in that times, there was a kingdom of Israel in the same region, and there were powerful dynasties like that of Davidic dynasty. This information from Tel-Dan stele is not new for the Jews or Christians. They knew it all along from the biblical sources for all these years. It lends additional validity to the biblical information. Now let's move on to the third archaeological finding. The Mesha stele. Where was this Mesha stele found? The Mesha stele is also known as the Moabite stone. This stele is dated around 840 to 830 BC. It contains a significant Canaanite inscription in the name of King Mesha of Moab. The stone was discovered at the site of ancient Moabite town called Dibon in the August of 1868. The place is currently located in the country of Jordan. The stele is now kept in the Louvre Museum in Paris, France, since 1873. So what's actually written on the Mesha stele? This is one of the longest inscriptions. Mesha stele describes the following: how Mesha was opposed by Omri, king of Israel, how Mesha went on to fight against the son of Omri and became victorious. And this also describes his building projects, restoring the fortification of strong palaces, and building a palace and reservoirs for water, and other construction activities. And this also lists his wars against Horonim, another people group. So this is actually the text of the Mesha stele. I am Mesha, son of Chemosh, king of Moab, the Dibonite. My father ruled over Moab for 30 years, and I ruled after my father. I made this high place for Chemosh in Keriho, a high place of salvation, because he saved me from all predators and because he made me triumph over all my enemies. Now, as for Omri, king of Israel, he oppressed Moab for many days because Chemosh was angry with his land. And then it goes on to say how Mesha overthrew the yoke of Israel. I will add the links to the full text of this inscription below. So what is the significance of the Mesha stele? Mesha stele is the longest Iron Age inscription ever found in the region. The text is quite long and mentions Israel. It provides invaluable information on the Moabite language and also political relationship between Moab and Israel at that point of time in history, 9th century BC. Again, this stele acknowledges that there was a state of Israel in existence in the 9th century BC with its own kings and military system in place. And they were powerful enough to subjugate the neighboring regions such as Moab, where King Mesha himself ruled. Also, the story in this stele parallels an episode in the biblical book of Kings in 2 Kings chapter 3, verses 4 to 28. Now let's move on to the last archaeological reference. The Kurkh monoliths, 9th century BC. The Kurkh monoliths are two Assyrian stele. They are dated to 852 BC and 879 BC in 9th century. What is more important for us is the monolith of Shalmaneser III. In 1861, archaeologists discovered a stele recording the first 6 years of the reign of the Assyrian king Shalmaneser III. So this stele is dated to 852 BC, and it describes Shalmaneser's campaign in western Mesopotamia and Syria. At the end of the stele, it gives an account of a battle of Kurkh, where it mentions the king of Israel as part of the anti-Assyrian coalition. What's written on it? The inscription points out that 12 kings allied themselves together against Shalmaneser at the Assyrian city of Kurkh. One of them was King Ahab of Israel. According to the inscription, Ahab committed a force of 2,000 chariots and 10,000 foot soldiers to fight the Assyrians. So here is a full text of the Shalmaneser monolith. I destroyed, devastated, and set fire to Kurkh, his royal city. Irhuleni brought 12 kings to his support. They came against me to offer battle and fight. 1,200 chariots, 1,200 cavalry, and 20,000 soldiers belonging to Hadad-Izar of Damascus, 700 chariots, 700 cavalry, and 10,000 or 20,000 soldiers belonging to the Irghelani of Hama, 2,000 chariots and 10,000 soldiers belonging to Ahab, the Israelite. And so the inscription continues. Again, those who would like to read the entire inscription, please check out the links in the description below. Now, what is its significance? The Kurkh monolith of Salmanasar III, it verifies the historical accuracy of Ahab, king of Israel, and the fact that he had a large army. He contributed chariots and foot soldiers, 10,000 of them, to the fight against the Assyrians as part of the Grand Coalition. Susan Ackerman points out this important information. The size of Ahab's contribution to the anti-Salmanasar fighting force at Kurkh indicates, for example, that Israel was still a major military power at the end of the first half of the 9th century BC. So Kingdom of Israel in 9th century BC played a crucial role by contributing largest number of chariots and soldiers to fight against the foreign Assyrian invasion. So what does it tell us? There was a nation, a state of Israel in the 9th century BC, in the same land where the current state of Israel is now located. So here is my closing reflection. Is Israel truly an occupier? The Egyptian comedian Bassam Youssef emphatically proclaims, these are Palestinian lands.
These are Palestinians. These are their lands. These are Palestinians. These are their lands. And then suddenly take them. Why? So they've been basically kicked around from their homes.
And he emphasizes that Israel is an occupier. He and others like him wouldn't even consider the possibility that Israel had connections to this land from antiquity, particularly when dealing with the ancient communities that continue to exist into modern times. Our perspective must take into consideration their ancient history and its continuity. As we have seen, in view of the archaeological evidence, Israelis have been associated with this land for a very long time. These are regions with long history that goes far beyond the UN Charter or the 19th century Zionist movement. To affirm one reality, we cannot and must not minimize or deny the other. While affirming the Palestinian-Arab connection to the land, one must not deny the Jewish connection to the same land, and vice versa. What Bassam Youssef has done is an extraordinary oversimplification of the very long, complex history. Jews have been in the same land of Israel since 2000 BC. That's roughly about 4,000 years. Even purely based on archaeological evidence, we can understand that Israelite kingdoms existed as early as 13th century BC. The four archaeological evidences coming from Egypt, northern Israel, Jordan, and Turkey regions, it points to the fact that the name Israel or the ancient kingdom of Israel is not the invention of the 19th century Zionist movement or the story derived from the Bible without any historical basis. Rather, it is based on historical reality. Jews were not occupying the lands. They were returning to their ancestral ancient homeland when they were facing tragedy in other places. So what made them go out of their lands in the first place? Perhaps we can explore that in another episode. In closing, the either-or paradigm is the root cause of the issue. We need a both-and approach. This is the Jewish land, and this is also the Palestinian lands. Jews have been here thousands of years, since 1500 BC. Palestinian Arabs have lived in these lands since the 7th century. Ignoring or sidelining the historical realities of one group and siding with the other will not lead us toward a peaceful solution. Everyone wants the end of hostilities and the end of the suffering of the millions. But peace is achieved when we embrace the historical reality and make adjustment and even compromises, if necessary, for the greater good of peaceful coexistence. It is not right to minimize the history of one to elevate the other. Rather, we must look upon each community with compassion. Holocaust resulted in the death of millions of Jews. An independent state for them is a humanitarian duty. On the other hand, Palestinians have been suffering since 1948 after the Arab invasion to recapture Israel failed. The mass displacement and suffering of the innocents on both sides is heartbreaking. So let's pray for both sides, Palestinians as well as the Israelis, to embrace one another, overcoming the hatred and the violence that characterize their past, for a hopeful future for themselves and their posterity. Thank you for staying with us thus far. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe and support our channel. And press the bell icon so that you can get notification whenever we post a new video. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. In the next episode, I will present archaeological references to the terms such as Hebrew, Jew, and Judea. The following segment will delve into the origins of the term Palestine and Palestinians, both from the perspective of the history and the Bible. Stay tuned for exciting updates. God bless you all. Shalom.